Good morning, friends, and happy Tuesday. I'm back in my Star Wars room today. So we're going to continue reading book number 32, which is Winter of the Ice Wizard. This one I told you is a little bit shorter this week in that it's only 9 chapters. So we read chapter 1 on Monday, and then we're going to read 2 chapters a day for the rest of the week, and that will get us to Friday. So vocabulary, the first word is knelt. Knelt just means past tense of kneel, so to kneel down. Rudder. Rudder is something that's on the back of a boat or a ship and allows us to steer the boat or the ship. Staff is like a very tall kind of rod that you can use to hold on to. It can be used for like helping somebody to walk, almost like a walking stick, or it can even be some sort of a magical or mythical thing. Tapestry is basically a painting or something that's made of woven cloth that hangs on the wall. So it's kind of like a decoration used for a variety of purposes. Trudged means to walk kind of slowly and heavily, like you're tired or like you don't really want to do it. Column are those supports basically that help hold a ceiling up. They can be round, they can be square. It kind of just depends. And then the last word was Norns, and I said that the Norns were those 3 women that people believed held on to your fate and kind of ruled your life, and they would keep your life on a string, and depending on what happened to the string was what happened in your life. And they could see, a lot of times they had like a third eye, and they could see your future. So we'll meet the Norns actually in this book, and then it'll make a little bit more sense. So Jack and Annie are in Frog Creek when they realize that it's the winter solstice, or the day of the year that's the first day of winter and the shortest daylight time. And they're like, well, our last adventure was on the summer solstice, maybe there's going to be a winter adventure. So they head off into the woods, and when they get into the woods, they realize that somebody's already at the treehouse, and it's Teddy and Kathleen. And Teddy and Kathleen say that they found a message from Merlin on a rock saying that he needed help, but they couldn't find Merlin and Morgan, so they kind of came themselves to get Jack and Annie, and that was sort of where we'd left off. I don't know if you can hear, my door is open. I have like a sliding door, and there's a bird that is so loud right now. Like, dude, I'm gonna need him to chill out because it's very distracting. Okay, so we were on chapter 2, The Land Behind the Clouds. And pardon me, I need to take a drink. I'm gonna have a little drink. Okay, Jack felt the sharp bite of an icy wind. He looked out the windows with the others. Oh man, he said. The treehouse was not in a tree, for there were no trees anywhere to be seen. Instead, it was sitting high on top of a steep snowdrift. Other drifts rose and fell across a vast, snowy plain. The plain beyond the plain were hills and mountains. The books were right, said Teddy, his teeth chattering. 'Tis bleak here. What do you think bleak means? If there's just kind of blank hills, lots of snow, not a whole lot else, what might bleak mean? I know, it's lovely, said Kathleen. This is the land where the northern seal people live. Cool, said Annie. Jack dug his hands into his pockets. He agreed with Teddy. The land did seem bleak and freezing. I wonder where Merlin's staff of strength is, he said, shivering. Well, let's begin our search, said Kathleen. The message tells us we must travel towards the setting sun. Kathleen climbed out of the treehouse window. She gathered her cloak around her and sat down on top of a snowdrift. Then she pushed off and slid down the steep slope. Oh, wow, wait for me, called Annie. She climbed out of the window and followed Kathleen. Whooping, she slid to the bottom of the snowdrift. Come on, you guys, it's fun, she shouted. Jack and Teddy looked at each other. Shall we, said Teddy. Jack nodded. He pulled a scarf tighter around his neck and followed Teddy out the window. Jack and Teddy sat down side by side. They pushed off and slid down the icy snowdrift. Jack couldn't help whooping, too. It was fun. At the bottom of the drift, Jack and Teddy scrambled to their feet. Jack brushed the snow off his clothes. He could see his breath in the frigid air. It's just a little chilly, said Annie, hugging herself. Only Kathleen seemed not to mind the cold. She was smiling as she lay on the ground, gazing up at the sky. Her seal nature probably keeps her warm, Jack thought with envy. Teddy peered across the snowy plain. I believe not one living creature is here but us, he said. Not true at all, said Kathleen. She pointed upwards. I see snow geese and whistling swans. I can almost see them too, said Annie. Kathleen stood up and shielded her eyes as she gazed across the plain. The cold sun was low in the sky. It cast long blue shadows beneath the snowdrift. She pointed into the distance. "And see, a white hare is leaping home before dark," she said. Jack looked where Kathleen pointed, but he couldn't see anything moving. "I see a snowy owl," said Kathleen, "and oh no." "What?" said Annie. "Wolves," said Kathleen with a shudder. "They just disappeared behind a snowdrift. My people greatly fear wolves." "You need not be afraid. I shall protect you," said Teddy. He took Kathleen's hand. "Come, let us make haste towards the sun." Together, Teddy and Kathleen headed across the snow-covered plain. Their woolen cloaks waved behind them. Jack and Annie dug their hands into their pockets and quickly followed them towards the setting sun. As Teddy, Kathleen, Jack, and Annie trudged across the frozen plain, the sun sank lower and closer to the horizon. Its last purple rays poured purple-pink light over the snow. The wind blew against Jack's face. He looked down and kept walking. The cold felt like needles against his skin. Each icy breath was painful. He hoped they found Merlin's staff of strength soon. He couldn't imagine anyone surviving for long in the lonely, freezing land. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard Annie calling. He looked up. The sun had completely slipped behind the horizon. In the cold twilight, the snow had faded from purple-pink to a shade of blue. "Jack, come look," Annie called. She, Teddy, and Kathleen were standing on the slope of a huge snowdrift. Jack hurried to join them. "Look," said Annie. "Oh, man," said Jack softly. On the other side of the snowdrift was a glimmering palace made of huge blocks of ice. Beneath the rising moon, its gleaming spires pierced the blue dusk. "I wonder who lives there," said Jack. "Let's go find out," said Teddy. Teddy led the way down the slope into the ice palace. Long icicles hung like spears in front of the entrance. "It seems no one visited this place in a while," said Kathleen. "Indeed," said Teddy. He broke off several icicles, and they clattered to the ground. "Onward," he said. The others nodded. Kicking aside the chunks of ice, Teddy led them all into the ice palace. Who do you think would live in an ice palace up in this area? Who do you think, just based on the book and what we know it's about so far, who do you think might live there? Chapter 3, The Ice Wizard. The air inside the palace was even colder than the air outside. Moonlight flooded through the tall arches in the walls. The floor shined like a skating rink. Thick columns of sparkling ice held up a domed ceiling. Dome, remember we had that word in half a circle? "Welcome, Jack and Annie," boomed a voice beyond the columns. Jack gasped. "Is that Merlin?" "Doesn't sound like Merlin," said Teddy. "But how does he know our name?" whispered Annie. "Come, Jack and Annie, I have been waiting for you," bellowed the voice. "Maybe it is Merlin," said Annie. "Maybe he's just using like a different voice or something. Come on." "Annie, wait," Jack called, but Annie had already disappeared into the sparkly room. "We have to follow her," he said to Teddy and Kathleen. The three of them hurried after Annie. Beyond the columns, steps made of carved ice led to a platform. Sitting on a throne on the platform was a huge, bearded man. The man on the throne was not Merlin. He was dressed in a worn robe trimmed in dirty fur. He had a rugged, weather-beaten face, a bushy beard, and a black eye patch. He leaned forward and glared at Annie with his one good eye. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I was expecting Jack and Annie of Frog Creek." Annie stepped towards the throne. "I'm Annie, and he's Jack. And these are our friends, Teddy and Kathleen. We come in peace." "Annie? Jack?" the man snorted. "You are not Annie and Jack. You are far too small." "We're not small," said Annie. "I'm 9, and Jack's 10. "But you are children," the man said with scorn. "Jack and Annie are heroes." "Yeah, I don't know if I'd call us heroes," said Annie, "but we do sometimes help Merlin and Morgan Le Fay." "Annie!" "Shh!" said Jack. He didn't trust the man on the throne and worried that Annie was saying too much. But Annie kept going. "In fact, Merlin told us to come to the land behind the clouds today," she said. "He sent us a message written on a stone." "Ah," said the man on the throne, "perhaps you really are Jack and Annie." He leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. "To Jack and Annie of Frog Creek. My staff of strength has been stolen. On the winter solstice, journey to the land behind the clouds, travel towards the setting sun and retrieve my staff, or all will be lost." Jack didn't understand. How do I know what was in Merlin's message?" said the man. "I know because I wrote it myself. I hoped it would find its way to you." Jack stepped back. So Merlin hadn't sent them on a mission. The weird man on the throne had tricked them. "Who are you?" demanded Teddy. "I am the Ice Wizard," the man said. The Wizard of Winter. Teddy gulped. Oh no, thought Jack. They had heard about this Wizard of Winter on their past Merlin missions. It was the Wizard of Winter who'd put a spell on the Raven King, and who stole the Sword of Light. The wizard glanced coldly from Teddy to Kathleen. And who are the two of you? I'm Teddy of Camelot, said Teddy. I'm an apprentice to Morgan Le Fay, and training to be a sorcerer myself. A sorcerer, said the wizard. Yes, said Teddy. My father was a sorcerer. My mother was a wood sprite. And I'm Miss Hilky, said Kathleen, one of the ancient seal people. So you're both from my world, said the ice wizard. You're of no use to me. He looked at Jack and Annie. I'm only interested in two mortals, Jack and Annie of Frog Creek. Why are you interested in us anyway, said Jack. Well, because of what you've done for Merlin, said the ice wizard. For Merlin, you found the water of memory and imagination. For Merlin, you found the diamond of destiny. For Merlin, you found the sword of light. Now I want you to find something for me. What did you want us to find? Asked Annie. The ice wizard grabbed the black patch covering his left eye. He yanked it off, revealing a dark, empty socket underneath. Yuck, said Annie. I want you to find my eye, said the ice wizard. Oh man, said Jack. He's a little bit horrified. Are you serious? Said Teddy. You want them to find your eyeball? The wizard covered his empty eye socket with his patch again. Yes, he said. I want Jack and Annie to find my eye and bring it back to me. But why? Said Jack. Even if we found it, we couldn't make it work. We're not medical experts. And anyway, why can't you just go get your eyeball yourself? Said Annie. Aren't you a wizard? Do not question my orders, the wizard roared at her. Hey, don't yell at my sister, said Jack. The wizard raised his bushy eyebrows. You are brother and sister, he said. Yeah, said Jack. The wizard nodded. His voice grew softer. And you protect your sister. We protect each other, said Jack. I see, whispered the wizard softly. Then his voice turned gruff again. Long ago I traded my eye for something I wanted very much, but I never got what I wanted, so now I want my eye back. Who did you trade it with? Said Annie. The Fates, said the wizard. I traded with the Fates, but they cheated me, and that's why I sent for you and Jack. You must go to the Fates and find my eye, and you must go alone. Why alone? Asked Jack. Because only mortals can undo a bargain with the Fates, said the ice wizards, not wizards like me, or seal girls, or the sons of sorcerers like your friends. But Jack and I succeeded in our other missions because Teddy and Kathleen helped us, said Annie. What kind of help did they give you? Said the wizard. Well, mostly like magic rhymes and riddles, said Annie. Ah, well then I'll do the same, said the wizard. He thought for a moment, then leaned forward. In a growly voice he said, Take my sleigh and find your way to the house of the Norns in the curve of the bay. Pay them whatever they tell you to pay, and bring back my eye by the break of day. The wizard reached into the folds of his ragged robe and pulled out a thick string with a row of knots. The wind string will speed you on your journey, he said, and he tossed the string to Jack. What's a wind string? Jack wondered. And who are the Norns? Before Jack could ask any questions, the ice wizard pointed at him. Now listen carefully to this warning, he said. Beware the white wolves of night. They may follow you on your quest. Never let them catch you. If they catch you, they will eat you. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The ice wizard picked up the carved wooden stick from the floor beside his throne. Its smooth, polished wood glowed in the moonlight. Teddy gasped. It's Merlin's staff of strength, he said. Indeed, said the wizard. He turned to Jack and Annie. Go now and find my eye, he said, or you will never see Merlin or Morgan Le Fay again. What have you done with them? Said Annie. The wizard stared at her. I will not tell you, he said. You will see them again only if you return my eye before the break of day. But, said Annie. No more questions, said the wizard. Be on your way. Before any of them could speak, the ice wizard slashed the air with Merlin's staff of strength and shouted a spell. Onai! A flash of blue fire shot from the end of the staff. In an instant, Jack, Annie, Teddy, and Kathleen found themselves outside the palace in the freezing night. Chapter 4. Take my sleigh. And that's where we're going to stop for today. So I will see you tomorrow to see what happens on their journey. What other stories do we know where wolves are the bad guys who try to eat you? Think about it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.